Welcome to the Ascension Star Gate podcast series, where we discuss the aspects of human consciousness, spirituality, metaphysics and philosophy, energy, extraterrestrial life, science, biology, and the alchemy of higher states of beingness, all from a heart-centered perspective. I am your host and guide, Glenn Mate, and let's begin our journey. So welcome to another exciting episode of the Ascension Stargate podcast series, and we have the most amazing guest today that you are going to love to hear. So we welcome Viola Rose. She is a transformational sound artist, combining her music and healing in her own inspired way, facilitating sound healing events and personal sound healing sessions all since 2014. She is also a heart-based meditation workshop teacher for Drunvalo Melchizedek, facilitating the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshops since 2012. Viola is also offering embodying vocal coaching, handpan lessons, and spiritual counseling and high vibrational lifestyle coaching. Viola strives to find the sweet spot between total detachment of this world and total joy and zest for life. So let's welcome Viola Rose. Welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you so much for that warm welcome.
Oh, it's great to have you along with us, and we're so grateful that you could join us today. We'd like to kind of just jump in and understand your awakening experience and how did it unfold? Were you in childhood? Did you have a childhood experiences? Was it a late teen, or did it kind of evolve to something that worked from, your musical background all the way to a spiritual awakening?
A great question. And I would say that my individuation started at a young age. And I think that when a person is individuated, they're more likely to start looking towards spirituality. That's not mainstream. And so even though I wasn't necessarily looking towards spirituality at a young age, I was definitely individuating. Like I was looking at the world and society and not fitting in, not understanding why it was the way it was, and really trying however I could to opt out of what I saw, in the world. I went vegetarian even at 18 because I just saw what was happening with the animals, and this was in the 80s. So by the time I was 20, I had pretty much checked out of society, and and I had found whatever I could find that was accessible, that pointed to other directions of people living closer to the land, people being more into community, and that took me down really amazing journeys into like the rainbow family and camping out in the woods with a bunch of hippies and having a great time and just breaking free from societal norms. That was a cherished time of my life. And I kind of roamed the country for 3 or 4 years, just backpacking and hitchhiking and going to festivals and campouts and singing songs around the campfire all night and being barefoot. It was amazing. And that went on for a few years. And then at one point, I kind of just I started to have a shift away from this lifestyle, which bless its heart. I mean, I loved it at the time, but when we start to shift, we can start to look at our own reality a little differently. And I started to look at it like a little bit like there was a little bit of a parasitical nature to it, because a lot of spare changing and a lot of eating free food and things like that can go on in those kind of circles where people aren't making an income, right? And so I was like, wait, I'm trying to live off of the society that I was trying to step away from. This isn't it either, And so I've got to find something else. And then I think I had I had moved to Boulder, Colorado for a summer, and I kind of started to hang around the Hare Krishnas when I was about 23 a little bit. And then other gurus were coming around, and Amachi, who is the hugging saint many people have heard of, she was coming to New Mexico in 1993, and I went to see her. And I was like, this is it. This is my path. I'm in, you know? And I didn't want to be a kind of a leech on society anymore. I wanted out altogether. And so I just dove in head first at 23 into like Eastern spirituality and went to her ashram in India, shaved my head, became a celibate monk, did that for years and was just full on because I'm always kind of 200% into whatever I'm into. And yeah, and so did that for a long time and really just was like the path of the guru, the path of bhakti, the path of devotion, and then it came to a point where it felt like it was done. It wasn't by my own um, inclination. I had got to the point where I asked Amachi if I could be a renunciate and live at her ashram forever. And because I want it all in, right? Just surrender everything and be a disciple and live there forever. And I asked her that, and she actually laughed at me. And, because I was the one person living at the ashram who was like blowing bubbles and playing, because my whole path is about being in joy, right? That is not the serious template of a sadhak, like of a renunciate. So she laughed and she's like, oh no, that this life is not for you. You have things you need to do and you need to go home and do them. So that's when, in the end of 1996, I came home from India, sort of with my tail between my legs, kind of going, okay, well, I've got to start over again. What am I going to do? And I ended up moving to Ashland, Oregon, uh, after a brief stint in the Bay Area of California, because she has an ashram. Amachi has
Mhm.
a United States base ashram there. So I thought I'd live nearby it because I still was so immersed in that path. I was like, I'll just live near it. And it was so rough coming from India and living in the Bay Area and like East Bay that a friend said, come up to Ashland. Life is good here. Sweet little small town of Ashland, Oregon. And I did. And I moved to Ashland, and I think I really blossomed into my adult self there. And, considering I had spent my 20s, half of it like kind of checked out as with the hippies, and then the other half in ashrams, I kind of missed the 90s altogether. I know nothing from the 90s, like none of the music, none of the movie references. I was just doing other things. And so then I moved to Ashland in 97, and it was such a beautiful community. I really kind of came into my own there and developed myself as a mature person on the path who had a solid foundation from my 20s, but immersing and engaging with life. So I'll
Mm.
stop for a moment. Yeah.
That's an amazing experience because that's almost like the paving of the way, almost like going through a college doctoral experience that you did that really gave you the tools to start to embody the truth of who you really were. And
Yeah.
I
I do
think in
kind of sometimes
those
call it my
90s periods,
my
really,
alternative education. Like the first,
right,
I didn't go to college. I did that instead. Yeah.
right. But that's like the really zestful life experience that those things, those experiences never go away. Those are embodying. Like people that go to college probably forget 65% of what they learned and only use 10%. Where with your experience, you're using 100% of all of those things, those little bits and pieces of all the knowledge, of all the experiences you've carried with you, and then started to metamorphosize as soon as you got into Ashland. So, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your blossoming and how all of those things started to unfold?
Yeah. I think just also to piggyback on what you just shared, that one unique piece about my journey, I think, is that most people will come to spirituality later in life. They spend their 20s uh, gallivanting about and indulging in life and partying, right? And then later on, they find the spirituality as they start to settle down a little bit more. But me kind of diving into that so young, it set a foundation
Mm,
and a floorboard for my life where now I'm indulging in life and I'm engaging, but I'm doing it from a baseline that was built in my 20s. So I approached it differently. And I did dive into life, and I have, and I still am, right, from that point. But it always has been a little bit like it's a spiritual path. no matter what I was doing and indulging in and or exploring different paths and whatnot, it was always from a baseline of growth and this kind of spiritual focus and centeredness. So when I was in Ashland, I lived there for 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a sweet little small town. And, sometimes I didn't even have a car. It was just like, I sold my car at one point so I could go to Maui for the winter, just so that I could explore further. But like, you could just ride a bike around town, and it was pre-internet, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was just community and small town living and potlucks and, things like that. And I had a really sweet time. I tell you what, though, I showed up with a shaved head, because I had been a monk now for years in an ashram, and really just vows of silence. And Ashland was gentle and allowed me to kind of blossom back into life in a way that I needed time, like to even like make friends or to come out of my shell. I started to go Sufi dancing, where you like look each other in the eyes and you're singing little songs and you're being playful. But I had stepped away so much from play even in my seriousness, even though I still had some essence of it. Like Ashland just let me blossom back into my full self. And I continued to blossom so much that by 11 years later, I had kind of outgrown it. There was nothing left for me to bounce myself off of there. And I was at a growth period in my 30s where I wasn't ready to just sit in a rocking chair and be content, and look at the hills. And I always thought, well, maybe I'll go back to Ashland when I'm ready to retire. But for now, I need more growth. I need more things to bounce myself off. So I moved to the city. I moved to Portland, where I stayed
Mm-hmm.
for 14 years. And there was city explorations. I got into being a Butoh dancer, which is like this freaky kind of performance art. I saw it and I was like, that's a language I need to
Mm-hmm.
learn, because my body wanted to start doing it when I saw these dancers doing this very weird, abstract form of performance art. And what it allowed me to do was breathe light into all of my shadow places, because if you're living as a monk, but and I did it so young, I didn't necessarily hadn't done a lot of the work of exploring my consciousness, healing my trauma,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that maybe one does eventually. And so this allowed me room to bounce myself off of all those things and find my wholeness and breathe light into the shadow places and the places in my psyche where there were cobwebs, where I didn't visit because I was a holy monk, you know. And so I did that for a few years and just bounced myself off of city living. And then I kind of got to this point where I felt whole. And I was like, I don't need the Butoh anymore. I don't need the dark stuff. I don't need any of it. I have actually breathed light and I'm a fully embodied person. And now I just kind of want to be in the light. But it was coming from a choice rather than an aversion or a
Uh,
fear or a bypassing, because I embraced all the things. There was no bypassing anymore, but there was just a choice. I want to be in the light and I want to be whole and I want to be playful and I want to, embrace this life. And that is when in 2011, where I stumbled upon the work of Drunvalo Melchizedek. And I gobbled up his information. I
mm-hmm.
started to read his books. I was like, this is amazing. This is exactly where I am right now. And I was ready for it. And even though I had lived in ashrams and I had done heart-based work and spiritual work in the past, I was ready for a different layer or level of it. And his work really spoke to me. And so I found myself coming to Sedona for the first time, actually, in 2011 to take his brand new workshop called
Mm-hmm.
Awakening The Illuminated Heart. And that set me off on a whole new path.
And what a great path it is. I myself being a recipient and a participant of that workshop, I think I did it somewhere in 2014 or 2015. And it was another grand epiphany for me and just showed me how much that heart integration is so important. His books, The Flower of Life, all of those started to bring in more sacred geometry, and what a great knowledge base that he afforded so many people. And you, as being, a grateful teacher and instructor of his work, just leads so many people into their own heart to see all of the parts and pieces of them. Just a great body of work, and of course, Drunvalo will at some point be leading on into more work, but I want to focus a little bit more on you and, you know, all of the great things that you're doing. Like, I want to know a little bit more about how all of your musical talents started to evolve, how you started from, you've got this beautiful vocal voice. I've listened to your recordings on YouTube, and I just find them so stimulating and enlightening. And of course, your musical abilities with handpan and you know, the combination of all different instrumentations. So, can you tell us a little bit more about these blossoming gifts that you have had, and that how you've started to bring them into the world?
Sure, that's fun. So back in my hippie days, I was so into singing and all these like rainbow chants and sort of earth chants and things and singing around the campfire. And I knew them all. And I had a drum and I would go to those song circles and I would sing all night long. I was just so into singing. And eventually I found that I could just sing the sunset, or I could sing people. I could sing people's essence. I could
Mhm.
sing the essence of a place. I could sing the essence of a sunset. It just kind of was this thing that was kind of happening. And then when I was living in Ashland, I really started to write songs and sing more. And that was really fun to like take my vocalizing, which I could do. And I had sang backup sometimes in some other performances or sang with DJs and things like this. But to actually start to compose some songs and front a band and put that together and start performing, it was really a fun way to explore that. And then I really started to get into the healing arts when I lived in Ashland as well. And I studied with a shaman and I studied Reiki, and I was really getting into doing healing. And I remember one winter when I was spending the winter on Maui, doing this fast and being out on like the lava fields and just trying to get clear about my life. Like, where is it going? Do I want to be a musician? Or do I want to be a healer? And thinking that I needed to try to choose one as my main path. And how silly that was, because really what ended up happening is they combined
Mhm.
into one thing. And so what I started to perform, like as I said, I was writing songs. So I started kind of performing in coffee shops a little bit, or performing and having an audience there. And I also found that that wasn't quite for me. Like, I didn't want to be putting on a show. And so the evolution of sound healing, as how it sort of came into my life, was being able to do music, to be able to sing and open up those channels, but do it in a way where it's for people's like deep experience. So rather than casually listening in a coffee shop, people are paying close attention. They're having their own internal experience and letting it take them on a journey. Oh my God, that for me was perfect. Nobody's watching me like it's a show. I am providing a soundtrack that people can utilize to heal themselves. And that really started to light me up. And so, how it came to be that I kind of started to do this professionally was that I was living in Portland by this time. And about 2013 or so, there was a group of friends, and we would get together and just what we called like just have kind of cosmic jam night. And we would get together and play instruments and sing songs. And it was really fun. And then somebody started to lay down in the middle of the room when something was happening with this kind of new agey kind of trance music we were playing. And then we all started taking turns one at a time, laying down and receiving it. And then people started to invite friends to this house for this jam night to lay down and receive the healing. So then me and my friend Michaela, we thought, wow, this is amazing. Let's take this to the public. Let's take this and share this with people. And in the end, nobody else really wanted to. Her and I did. So we did actually. And we started to do sound baths. This is back in 2014, and sound healing journeys, when it really, really wasn't much of a thing at the time. And we just kind of just did it and started to invite people to come. And at first I had some instruments, she had some, and we would actually bring in some other a didgeridoo player here or there, or whatever. And we created Portland Sound Sanctuary. And it was so fun. And for a few years, we had this business together and did sound healing events all over the Portland area. And then people would sometimes want private sessions, right? So then I would start to see people individually. we were so into it that both of us kept building our collection of instruments. Like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Oh my God, I need this. I need that. Like, what new instrument is going to come into my field and provide a sound or experience or a feeling that nothing else does? I want, all the spectrum. So eventually, at some point, her and I each had our own collection of instruments, different from each other, curated to our own likes. And we had done this kind of hand in hand for a few years that we were ready to graduate and kind of started to then do events on our own. And so it was the coolest way to start a business or to start a path was to do it with a friend, build it up together,
Mm.
and then go off in your own direction. So then, since then, I've been doing my own events for years and doing individual sound healing sessions. And I tell you what, it is, I think, my absolute favorite thing to do. Like when I'm in the space where I'm creatively, because it's always improvisational, creatively bringing through sounds and music that people are receiving and it's helping them transform. Like in those moments, I couldn't be happier in this world. Like it's, they say
Mhm.
that happiness is giving, is being in service in a way that brings you the most joy. And so that's what I feel in those moments.
That is so beautiful. And, for our viewers, so they can understand that from my perspective, I understand that you are literally channeling. So you can pick up the vibration when you're doing a one-on-one session with someone, and you are channeling the right frequencies to give them or provide them the opportunity to heal, to change, to reframe, to receive. And it's such a wonderful gift. And I've been fortunate enough to be the recipient of many sound baths, and I just love to indulge whenever I can because it's such a wonderful treat when you find yourself slipping into a higher state of consciousness and absorbing all of the frequency, whether it be sound, of voice, the vocals, the sound bowls, the didgeridoo, triangles, chimes. It's just such a wonderful experience. And, I'm so grateful that, you've brought these gifts of yours and your inspirations to fruition for so many wonderful people to embody and enjoy and receive, an individual session, which is just a wonderful experience. And if you're watching this now and you haven't had the experience of a one-on-one sound healing, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's just something that will continue to open, and not only does it, help open your mind and heal your body, but it really speaks to the essence of who you are through your heart. As we know, Drunvalo's work is heart-based, but it really speaks to that level of heart. And if you'd like to expound on that at all, please feel free to do.
Mhm. Well, yeah, you said that there is something special about the individual session, and it is so true. I think that when I do a sound bath for a group, whether it's in public or it's a private event, whatever, I'm reading the energy of the group field
Mm.
and playing and singing what comes through for that space and for that energetic. But when it's a one-on-one session, I'm directly tuning into that person's energy and physical and energetic, emotional, mental, all of it, right? And playing in a way and singing whatever wants to happen and the repatterning and the restructuring. So
Mm.
it's very customized. It's like singing your soul song and putting the instruments directly on the body, sometimes Tibetan bowls or harps or things that can go right on tuning forks. And so it's a totally different experience and definitely is a treat. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love that. So let's talk a little bit now about your teaching of Drunvalo's work. We'll go back to Awakening the Illuminating Heart. That's a great workshop. So let's talk a little bit about those workshops that you do and how you do them, because you do them in a, not only just in person, but you also offer online, which is great if you can't make it to, your part of the United States. So let's talk a little bit about those workshops.
Yeah, earlier when I was sort of telling my story, we kind of left off right there, right where I found Drunvalo and I found myself in Sedona in 2011. And the first time he offered to the public, the Awakening the Illuminated Heart. And I walked away from that workshop saying, oh my God, this is the most important thing I've ever done. Like this is the path to freedom. Because for me, I'm a very sovereignty, as an individuated person, I'm really a sovereignty-based person. I want sovereignty for myself. I want sovereignty for all living beings. So when I went to his workshop, I was just like blown away because it was almost like everything that you would need to walk the path of ascension on your own. It's
Mm-hmm.
in a way a workshop to end all workshops because you make your own connection with your own higher self. You get into your own unified field of the tiny space of the heart. You activate your own psychic antennas, your own Merkaba field. It's like you have everything you need. And so I was so into it that when in the last day of the workshop, when he said, well, this is a new workshop, so I want to train people to be facilitators of this work. I just knew that was exactly what I had been waiting for and looking for was how do I be in service in a way that is aligned? And so I got to go to Mexico in January of 2012 with 100 hand-selected people to
Mm-hmm.
go be in training for this work. And I remember getting there, and there's me with my pigtails, my tattoos, and I'm like, I'm going to go down and train with Drunvalo and all these like really spiritual people. And my thought, I had a little nervousness beforehand about it, kind of like, but who's going to take me seriously as a teacher of this profound work? I'm I'm this playful, just kind of unconventional person. And after I went through that training and became a teacher and did my follow-up training, was certified and was ready to go, I was on the West Coast where all the West Coast consciousness festivals are. There's so many of them. And I realized, oh, that's it. Like
Mm-hmm.
those are my people. And so I started to do like 2-hour introductory workshops at all these consciousness West Coast festivals because people wanted that information as well, but they also wanted it from somebody who they could relate to, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I found my way. And that allowed me to start with confidence. And then since then, that has long faded away. What I learned really on is like during my first workshop that I taught it for 6 friends so that I could try it out to see if I could even do it. I was never a teacher before. I knew nothing about it. And then halfway through like the workshop, my friend, she's like, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? And I realized, oh, I hadn't even thought about it. This is the most natural thing I could ever possibly do. I was born for it and I didn't even know. So my confidence continued to just build, and it really is the most natural thing for me to do. I have this, for those who are into astrology, I have a Gemini moon, which means like the twins, the two things. And for me to have 2 solid, total, complete life paths is so pleasing for a Gemini moon person. And so I have these 2 solid sound healer and workshop facilitator. And so when I'm teaching the workshops as well, I have come to find that I am my absolute best self. Like it brings out the best in me because have to be so accountable and precise and very thorough and kind and all the things that like I love it. And I love being in that space and helping to share and transmit this
Mm-hmm.
information from Drunvalo, which is so profound. So I've been teaching, since 2012 now. And I've taught over 100 of these 4-day workshops and many of the 2-hour intros. And I do follow-up courses for people who've been through it. Like I'm so into it. And at this point, there are still quite a few teachers in the world who are teaching this work of Drunvalo's and still holding on to it. And I'm one of those people who's still waving the flag of like, this work is profound. And then when COVID happened and everything kind of shut down, everything had to change. I had been traveling for years, teaching this work up and down the West Coast, in Hawaii, different places. And then COVID happened and I had a workshop scheduled in 2 weeks' time where everything sort of locked down. And in Portland, they took things very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Lockdowns and whatnot, right? So nobody wanted to come to the workshop. And I didn't have a webcam. I didn't even really know what Zoom was. I knew nothing, and I just meditated on it. I asked my higher self, I was like, what do I do about this? And I was like, I'm going to do it online. I'm just going to see
Mm-hmm.
if it works. And I think I was the first teacher to just try it online. And to my absolute surprise, it worked great. And I didn't know that it would, because it's such a heart-opening workshop, that there's a lot of the work that is based in just like being with community and being with others, and the hugs that happen and the lunch breaks and the conversations and the entrainment that can happen and being with a group of people. So will it even translate? And it really does. And so I continue to do it. And then now, even years later, I still continue to do it, because what I found is that it's amazing for people who don't have the funds to travel, or the time, or they have commitments and they can't go travel on a vacation to go take this work. It's so important that I want it to be accessible for everybody. So I still continue to do it online to this day. And I would say that the difference between the two is that you don't get as many hugs and you don't get to know the participants as much when you're in little Zoom cubes, but I try to make it as engaging as possible, and people really do still love it. But the core of the work, which the work, you've taken it, it's profound, the activations and the transmissions, that is still there. And that is the most important part of the work. So the community aspects we can get in other places in our life. But when people don't have to travel and they're in the comfort of their own home and they're very relaxed, they actually get it in a very simple, easier, more straightforward way. So in some ways, one works better than the other, different ways. So they both have their place.
Right. And there's a couple things to note. So, when we're working with heart frequency has no limitations, meaning there is no bounds to that frequency that is being emitted. So as you're learning to open your heart, as you're working with your heart frequencies, you're creating a field, a communal field between other people. So maybe they're on little Zoom boxes, and, in the Hollywood squares, but that doesn't matter. That's not the most important. The most important is that you're creating this frequential field that is of heart consciousness. And everybody gets to dive and dip their feet into that pool of heart consciousness and continue to embody. And yet you are on Zoom, but you are starting to grab information from all of these different hearts that are opening simultaneously. So it's a great experience. And also, if you have taken the course and maybe you took it in person, or maybe you took it online, that you also offer these refreshers, and it gives you an opportunity to just reinvest your heart energy again and be part of a community, or be part of a new community from a new facilitator. So that is just another, wonderful experience, right?
Yeah, that is something that I love to do, because as a facilitator of the work for Drunvalo, and I live it, I breathe it, I've been teaching it for years. I'm in the workshop over and over and over. So those activations and the tools that we work with in the workshop have become such a part of my life on the daily, that I know how important and how amazing it is. And, as a seeker, like most people who come to workshops are like, there's the seeker mindset where you're just onward, onward. What's the next level? Where's the next growth? We can be pretty onward about things, and then go to a workshop, you practice it for a couple of months, and then you're on to the next thing. But because I know the importance and the amazingness of having these tools fully activated, years ago, I decided I'm going to start doing these refresher classes for anyone who's done the ATIH, the full Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop, with another teacher or with Drunvalo or with me. So that way you can revisit it and remember. I just do it by donation, and I do it 4 times a year online. So if, anyone can drop in if you've done the whole workshop and, reactivate. Because sometimes people come and they did the workshop 10 years ago and they're like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot about the beams of light, or the opening of the third eye, or whatever it is. So yeah, so I help to keep it alive for people.
And that's also great. So if you happen to be in the Sedona area and you're on vacation, or you're visiting, or you're just out experiencing the vortex, you may also want to check Viola's website to see if you'd like to jump in on, kind of renewing that heart essence again. So that would be a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I do the refresher gatherings online. People come to me for private sessions, or like a tune-up, or if they're in person and they want to come and just have a session and just dive into that material in any way. So, and
That's
then
another great offering, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then I also do the self-study course now. This is something that I started over a year ago with a recording of an online workshop. And it happened when the School of Remembering, which used to be one of the websites that was the school, was about to sort of close down. And I thought, well, I'm just going to record this workshop. And I
Mhm.
asked, my participants, can I record it? And is it okay if I utilize this for students for a self-study? And they said yes. And so I actually have a recording of the workshop with 8 people. And I've made that available that people can go through the course in their own time because many people are like new mothers or they live in a time zone that doesn't accommodate taking the workshop at all, or they just really need to go. Or sometimes people don't speak English really well and they want to be able to go slow and rewind and play it. So anyway, I have a self-study course. And then what happens is you go through day one of the workshop and then you email me and say, okay, I'm done with day one. Here's my questions. Here's my comments. I answer. We communicate back and forth through audio text. And then I send day two. And so you can actually get real-time guidance, but you can do it at your own pace. So lots of opportunities and options for people who want that work of Drunvalos. And like I said, it's sovereignty training, it's empowerment, but it's also really metaphysical and, light body activation, like how to actually ascend from the third dimension to the fourth dimension consciously. And it is all about the heart. It's getting out of the duality of the mind and into the unity of the heart. So it's really beautiful work.
Absolutely. And you're activating your Merkaba or your light body, which are those two inversions of the pyramids that connect and spin at opposite directions. And that is your light body for those who may not be familiar with the Merkaba. But that is part of your essence and who you are. It's another way to bring yourself into that conscious level of understanding more about who you are and that ever loving heart of yours that's just ever expanding, if you give it
Yeah.
the chance.
It is a part of us. It's like most people think we know that we have a physical body, an emotional body, and a mental body, but then we also have our light body. It's also just another part of us. So you took the ATIH workshop back in 2014, you said.
Yes.
And how was that for you, or is that for you, or how has it informed your life? I'm curious.
Oh, it dramatically changed my life. I was always a seeker, so very similar to you, and we're very similar in age, growing up in the same era. I became a young father at the age of 20 and didn't go to college. I jumped into work. But one of the things that was interesting for me is I had experiences as a young child, an out of body experience. And when I told my mother about it, she said, "Don't you ever do that again." So the quirk went on for a little bit, but I got interested again in my teens, and astrology was like the first new agey thing in the mid '80s. And what's your sign, and that's like coming off the '70s, and I got really into astrology and understanding more about that. And I always had this thirst of knowledge. So when I wasn't working, my nose was in a book learning about flower essences, crystals, Egyptian history, philosophy, religions, and all of those things that they're all connected. And then, throughout the years, I'm like, I want to go deeper. I want to do workshops. I want to know more. I want to know how I can utilize everything in my daily life. And when I took the workshop, it just opened up a whole nother level. And I really started to understand more about the frequency of my heart and how our life really revolves around the heart. The brain is more of just the analytical part, but everything frequential comes from the resonance and the receiving of information and frequency within the heart, and how all of that is boundless. And it started to bring me into I got to know more about heart-centered abilities and how do we utilize this. And it's not just this four-chambered pump, it's actually creating a vortex, and it's got all of this energy, and there's information stored in there. And it just set me on a whole upward trajectory, and I started to learn how to speak light language, unbeknownst to me. And then I started to become a channel, and it just kept snowballing and growing. I'm like, wow, I'm just growing, and left my career the fire service and decided that this is what I want to do. I want to lead and teach and bring new information to people that may have never heard it before from a regular guy to just, this is the military persona, but how is this guy so spiritual?
You're the bridge. You're a bridge. That's awesome.
So I'm, and I'm so blessed and grateful that that opportunity came to me and that I got to experience my own awakening, my own activation of my light body, and to continue raising my consciousness and growing. It was such a wonderful workshop it was, and I love to go back and visit the work, and right by my bedside, you pull out my bedside table, pull out the drawer, and there's the activation sequence just to remember it if I forget it. It's right there. So the work has never left me just as well. I'm very passionate about that.
Oh, lovely.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about, now you happen to know Drunvalo pretty well, and you've had some experiences with him, and you recently had this video that got a lot of attention because Drunvalo has been a little bit under the radar, let's say, so to speak, just not in the public eye. And I know he's been working on books, and he kind of gave himself some timelines over the years, like I'm going to have this book out again, and the third edition is going to be out. So can you speak about a little bit about the relationship that you have with Drunvalo and what might be coming that you can bring, that he'll give to you to bring to the masses?
Yeah, sure. So this is a very exciting sort of part of my life right now. And so 3.5 years ago, my husband and I moved to the Sedona, Arizona area because we were in Portland, which I said was very intense during COVID times, and it was just time to leave the city. And we looked about where we were going to move to, and we didn't really consider Sedona because it's so expensive. And so we were driving around the country, actually going to Arkansas, going to other places in Idaho, and like, where are we going to go? And then I meditated on it and asked my higher self, and my higher self very clearly said, go to Sedona and help keep the ATIH work alive. And my husband had his own epiphany at the time as well, because he actually drove through Sedona on his way onto another trip out to Arkansas to look for property. And as he kind of came through, he had his own like, aha, this is the spot too. So at the same time, we both got our ahas. And so we moved here and we made it work financially to just move to the area, even though it's very expensive in Sedona. And I was like, okay, here we are. Started a new life here in January of 22. And I was told to come here to keep the ATIH work alive. So I thought originally that meant maybe I'm going to teach a lot of the workshops because, this is where Drunvalo used to teach the workshop. There really wasn't any active workshops happening here. And so I thought that was going to be my role. So I got here and I started to kind of promote that I'm teaching workshops, and I would get like 3 people, 4 people. I'd have to cancel some, not a lot of, because Drunvalo, he's so not active in the world. He hasn't been active in the world for many years, that the amount of people who come to the workshop are people who find his work now. Like without a public presence and internet presence, you're only going to know about his work if it's meant to find you. And so those people are still come to the workshops all the time, where they just found the Flower of Life books and they're just like, oh my God, or they just revisit it, and they're ready to take the workshop. So I just was having a trickle of people coming to the workshops. And I was like, well, but I'm here. I came here for this, for something. And so then I got connected with Drunvalo, and somebody told that I had moved here. So he said, well, give her my number, have her call me up, let's talk. So him and I started talking on the phone, and he was working on his new book and didn't have a lot of time outside of working on the new book. And I had the thought, oh, maybe this is why I'm here, to help with the book. And so then eventually that is what exactly happened is him and I would be just talking and talking. And I started to share with all the other ATIH teachers what him and I would talk about. And so then he started to tell me things to tell them, and I became a liaison in between him and the teachers. And so then we started to organize Zoom meetings, and I would go to Drunvalo's house and we could Zoom with the teachers so he could fill the teachers in on what's coming and the new material that's going to be in this new book that he's writing, so that the teachers can be prepared and practiced and experienced by the time the book comes out and ready to share it with the world. So, and then as an ATIH expert, as somebody who's taught this a lot, they also brought me in on the book for some editing and some things like that nature. So that was how that video came to be that I made with Drunvalo, is because I was at his house to do a Zoom call with the teachers, and I was just like, do you want to say hi to the world? They would love to see you, you know? The world wants to see him so much. And so he agreed. And I actually have another short video that I recorded with him that I'm waiting to put out, because there is legal stuff with the book coming out and copyrights and waiting till the information is out before it's talked about for the publishing company that they care about that stuff.
Right.
So nonetheless, Drunvalo has been working on this book for a while. And if you're a fan of Drunvalo, you will remember that back in 2015, he taught the Way to Do is to Be workshop and then the Cosmic Grace workshop. There was just 2 of them, and then he went underground, and we hadn't heard from him since, really. And what happened was he has all this new information that was coming in. So he taught those workshops to try it out, to formulate it, and realized it wasn't complete. And he didn't know everything that he wanted to talk about and communicate. So he went into deep meditation for years, hours and hours a day, spent in like the deepest places, working this out, talking with his higher self, just formulating it together. And then this is the information that he wants to share with the world. And this is the Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, Volume 4, which is built off of the Cosmic Grace workshop, right? In order to understand that information, you would have had to attend the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop. Like when he taught it to the public, you had to already have taken that big workshop to even go. So for him to even talk about that information, he needs to put out a book that is the information in the Awakening the Illuminated Heart for those who haven't actually been to the workshop. So that's what Volume 3 is a lot of the information is based on the Awakening the Illuminated Heart, but also how it's evolved over the last 14 years. And it has, because Drunvalo is always getting new information and new updates. So it's an updated version of that. And then he really is now he's actually starting to work on writing Volume 4, which is the stuff he really wants to talk about, which he's very excited about. Even though when he put out the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop, he said, this is everything you need to know to walk the path of ascension. It's whole, it's complete. All you have to do is be in your heart. That's it. And here's how to do it. And then you can activate your Merkaba, and now you're ready to fly. Like that's it. That's all you need. So anything that comes after that is extracurricular, but Drunvalo can't help it either, because he is like a researcher, and he's, just tapped into such high frequencies that he's always bringing through new stuff. So he gets lit up and excited, just as any seeker would, to talk about the next thing. And so it'll be cool to get the information from Volume 4, but even if not, the Awakening the Illuminated Heart, the workshop and the book, will have information that benefits anyone, regardless if anything else even shows up after that.
Oh, that's so exciting. And I can't wait to dive into the next, iterations that Drunvalo is working on. But again, that base level of knowing that information of, Awakening the Illuminating Heart is paramount to understanding everything else. So it's like, if you're interested just like me, make sure that you get into one of these workshops. Of course, get in contact with Viola so you can get into one of her classes, be it in person or online, so you can start to get these tools for all of these other upcoming iterations that are going to be available probably in the next couple of years. I mean, Drunvalo takes his time. He's very methodical. He's very precise. He's, every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and then it's triple checked. So
Yeah,
he
and the
just
information keeps updating and changing. So that's
right.
another one of the reasons why the book has also taken so long, even though it was maybe going to be done years ago, is that the information just keeps evolving and changing. And so, um, yes, I also just want to mention that, there are teachers all over the world as well of
Yes.
this work. Rememberingtheheart.com is the website for the ATIH work and the teachers that is, going to be linked to the new book. And so if you want to take a workshop in person, but you're in another country, you can find a teacher there. We've got about 100 teachers, in the world in different parts. And if there isn't one near you, then you can do one with me online, if you want to. Um, so that's there and it's solid. And the teachers will also be upgrading because Drunvalo is upgrading us also as well with new information so that we can be riding the wave with him. And also up on the forefront is Drunvalo and I are building a recording studio in his downstairs. And I just bought equipment last week, sound equipment, video equipment, for this because he really wants to start talking to the world and he wants us to do it together. And so, that's coming soon. And so, we're just moved in a big desk and we're just getting ready for that. So he wants to talk to the world again. He wants to share information, and he's older. He's 84 now,
Hmm.
he is, maybe not here for, forever so, he definitely would love to share more before he is on to the next adventure. And so, we're looking forward to getting that going.
How exciting that is to know that that is coming, and so much thanks to you for helping him get things facilitated and organized and publicized, because we've been waiting to hear from Drunvalo for such a long time period. It we knew that something was happening, but I always knew that he was in the ethers, getting ready for the next iterations. And
Right.
there's so many timeline changes that we've had over the last decade or so, where our ascension path is kind of, it's not the straight linear point to point all the time, where things are kind of, up and down and jagged, and we have to be in the flow of this. But it's just so exciting that you're part of this and that you're going to be helping Drunvalo get this work out. But again, more importantly, there's other things that you have to offer. And I also want to talk about some of your handpan lessons that you do with your musical instruments, and also some of your spiritual counseling and your high vibrational coaching. Can you talk just a little bit about some of the things, again, that you offer as a spiritual guide?
Yeah, sure. So I do offer individual, like spiritual counseling or coaching or whatever you might like to call it. As somebody who has been guiding people through this workshop now for so long, sometimes people want individual sessions with me to talk about that work or to talk about their spiritual path in general, and just bounce that stuff off someone. So I'm available for that, and coaching, whether it's like I said, the ATIH work or just your spiritual path or high vibrational living. Before I found Drunvalo's work and I was trying to feel into how do I want to be in service, I actually went to school to become a holistic health coach.
Mm.
That was before that work. And so I have a passion for that. And I've just been somebody who's been on, extreme health path for my whole life. And I'm really into lucid, clear, sober living, like high vibrational living. And so I have a lot of experience in that with my own and then also with my education. So when people want to upgrade their diet or their health in any way, sometimes they want to work with somebody to kind of help them along with that. So I'm available for that as well. And my singing. So I talked a little bit about how when I was younger, I found that I could sing the sunset or I could sing people's essence. And I've had the blessed experience of being able to sing dying people's last song. And I've had more than about two, so it's been three people that I've gotten to go in and sing, like they brought me in to sing to someone
Mm.
when they're dying, and I've been able to kind of go in and feel their essence and bring their final song out. And so this is just a skill that I have, and my voice is my favorite instrument, and I love to sing improvisationally. And so over time, people started to ask me, can you teach me how to do that? What are you doing? And I also studied, when I lived in Ashland for 4 years, I studied the tantric dance of the sacred feminine, which was a path of embodiment, which was learning how to listen to the womb, the brain that's in the womb, and how do you move from there in a way that's totally embodied. Well, over time, I started to take that teaching and those years of studying that and use that with the voice. And so how do we learn to get into like the womb or the deeper spaces within and use our voice and sing or even speak from a fully like embodied place? So it's something that I've kind of just pieced together over years and have developed into what I call embodied vocal coaching. And then I also teach handpan lessons. I've been playing handpan since 2014, I think now. And so I am to teach people sometimes online if they have their own handpan, or people come to me for lessons. So just little add-ons onto my main paths, which is like sound and music and healing and the workshop. You know, the older we get, the more we find that different pieces people want that we can help them with. So I have a sort of a broad range of different things that I offer.
That's awesome. And we're going to make sure that we embed all of these website addresses for you. So if you need to get in touch with Viola, you can find her, just by watching the video. You can find it in the write-up as well. Her website is dreamthenewdream.blogspot.com. She offers so much that it's just a great body of work, a great body of learning. I ask and I invite you to try one of the pieces of her work that seems to speak to you, whether it be, part of Drunvalo's work or part of learning about yourself or spiritual coaching or handpan or music or vocal. All of these things are all interrelated. And it's just such wonderful gifts that she is sharing with the world. Viola, do you have anything else that you'd like to offer us today?
Well, first, I want to say that my website is actually violarose.com will get you there. But the landing page is what you just mentioned. It forwards to my, blog spot because that's a nice homemade way to make a website. But Viola Rose, depending upon what browser you're on, you have to put www before it, is violarose.com. And I also have a link tree, Viola Rose on Linktree, and that has all of my links, even to my Bandcamp page, which has like my recorded music for sale on it. So we can put that in the comments below. And I think what I want to share, that's besides all these, things that I offer, is I just want to talk about the joy piece, about that. Like my life motto is be in joy anyway. That's it. Like I am somebody who looks at this reality, like really looks at it. And I have dove down every rabbit hole that is possible to imagine. And some of them are hard and whatnot. And just really looking at this world for what it is and what this is even is. And I don't even know. And knowing that I don't know, but seeing the possibilities and seeing what's really kind of going on around me. It's not a path for everyone, but it has definitely been a path for me. And it has felt important to be somebody who can hold all that stuff and choose to be in joy anyway. And so that to me is freedom, to be able to not have to go into dissonance or avoidance and look at everything straight on. Like when I wanted to go vegan, I watched the movies, I watched the documentaries of what they do, so I could see it and confront it and then stabilize to it, right? So when you're totally stabilized to what is going on, then you're free. Then you just know that this place is possibly, it's 3D. It's third dimension, right? It's not a harmonic realm, nor is it designed to be. Even Drunvalo will say in The Flower of Life that the third dimension is a discordant note. So it's almost like suffering by design, distraction by design to keep us spinning our wheels. And yet we can just choose to opt out, to be in our heart and just say, no, thank you. I'm just going to be in joy anyway. And when you realize that this is this whole show by design to keep us that way, then you're not as invested in it anymore. I don't feel like I need to save the world. I don't need to feel like I need to fix things anymore. I'm just going to choose to be in joy anyway, and to live lightly and to play and have fun, to be in service, to help alleviate suffering. Because even if on some level this is a simulation, and even if the suffering isn't real, it sure feels real to everybody who's experiencing it and when we experiencing it. So being loving, being in joy, helping to alleviate suffering, these are the things that seem to matter. And the rest is just distraction by design.
Viola, what a great message. Thank you so much. Thank you from my heart to yours. Thank you for being a guest with us today and sharing not only just your beautiful gifts, but your beautiful essence and all of your energy. We thank you for watching this episode of the Ascension Stargate podcast series. Can't wait to see you again on the next one. Thank you for having us.